You
Like
okay?
those are some of my favorite ones when they don't know the recording, and that's a good transition to that.
Yes. Okay.
So you're just we've got Amanda. I want to make sure I say your last name right.
Boffman.
Baughman.
Yes,
Does
Boffman.
an F sound?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's
I'm
spelled like Bowman, but it's pronounced Boffman.
Baughman. Okay.
Mhm.
Got Amanda Baughman, newly acquainted with Murray County Schools, or about to be acquainted with Murray County
Mhm.
Schools. You were just explaining you've spent your career since 2013 hanging out in Dalton City, done some
Yes.
cool stuff there.
Yes,
Uh,
I started at Dalton High School and I taught English there. And then I moved over to Dalton Middle School with a principal that was my teacher and has been a mentor, lifelong mentor. And it changed to Dalton Junior High, and then it added the Dalton Academy High School in the building. And so I got to be a part of all of the launches of those schools. And then there's been some changes this year because there was a smaller student population and we weren't really sure if my program was going to be there year after next. So when
mhm.
there was a need in our neighboring Murray County, I took the leap and I'm really excited because Murray hasn't really implemented podcasting much in their county or been plugged in to the National Podcast Project. So I feel like this is, both the opportunities to really connect with them in both ways, in literacy and English and also with the podcast project.
So let's back it up a little bit from there. How did you get started in the podcasting game? I'm kind of familiar with you a little bit through Rick Williams, friend of the show,
Mhm.
and friend in general.
Yes.
And through some stuff you guys have done, you, him, and Greg have formed like a super friends trio from different parts of the state to kind of go out and do some cool things.
Yes.
And you said a couple interesting things there. I heard the National Podcast Project, but before that, how did you get started? Like, what was your entry point?
Well, I'm an English teacher, and I mean, I'll always be an English teacher. That is my passion, my background. I've been a writer since I was like a child, very young child. Very poor reader, came into teaching because I had a teacher who realized in college that I could not read. I made it to junior year in college and had not completed a book on my own. So I come to
Wow.
it with a very different story. I was a teacher's kid, and I just spoke well and could read well aloud. And so I fell through the cracks all through school. And so I never loved reading like maybe some kids did. And even now, it's harder for me to read difficult text than other teachers at my same level. So I get kids on that level. I get that struggling. The English language I heard takes 14 different skills to do it effectively. And so any of those 14 can give you trouble and then you don't read effectively. So it's a very intricate skill to teach children and for children to get. So in 2020, right as we went into COVID, we had an audio video teacher leave at the Dalton Middle School where I was at the time. And I was doing some journalism projects. We were doing school-wide writing projects where we'd stop for 18 minutes at 2018, and everybody in the school would write for 18 minutes, and then they would take 18 words from their 18 minutes of writing, and we would put them together for an anthology, things like that. And
So
so
cool.
I had a journalism kind of approach to even my classroom, and they said, well, why don't we merge the journalism and the audio video? And I had been in the English classroom with a lot of testing for a long time. And so this felt
Uh-huh.
exciting to me. And I thought, okay, I'm going to get to like play with the kids with words and, video and photography and all the ways of storytelling that I love. And so I got to start kind of my own program. And because it was middle school, there weren't, a ton of rules about it. And so I just said, I don't know anything about video. I'm a great writer. I know photography. And so I got to go to a conference at Syracuse University at their journalism school called the
Oh wow.
Multimedia Immersion. And I will never forget it for the rest of my life. It's probably, I mean, it's not probably, it's definitely the best professional development I've ever had. I was with some of the best journalists across the country and spent almost a week with them. And I was there to learn video, but in the process, I met a lady from the education desk at NPR named Lauren Magaki. And in
Wow.
all the midst of all of these, videographers and photographers, she was talking about, hey, don't forget audio. And I remember her sharing a podcast about a family who had gone through a fire, or had been in the midst of the fires in maybe California or out west. And she asked us to close our eyes. And I remember literally tears coming down my cheeks and thinking, why have we never used this in education?
Hmm.
This is all the literacy skills. I mean, when people say like a light bulb went off, it was literally this. I can't. It's hard to describe, but like it's just I got it, and I thought, this every teacher should be using this. I
Hmm.
thought, all the video takes all that expensive equipment. So many schools can't buy it. It's wonderful when you can, but that really makes kids that come from poverty not be able to access it. But you can make an amazing podcast with a little handheld mic and, Soundtrap or
Yeah.
even free tools like Audacity. And so, it really levels the playing field with kids who do not have access to expensive equipment, anything. And
Hmm.
so, and yet it almost boils it down to this like raw story where we're all alike. We all struggle and we all hurt and we all, work to overcome. And, it takes out all the extras that make us different, like the way we look.
Yep.
And it just reminds us that we're all just people, little people and big people and broken people. And, that we're living in this world together, and it honors our different walks and it makes us realize how alike we really are. And to me, everything just came alive in that moment. And I was like, this is what I want to do.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I could talk forever about that.
I mean, that is so cool. Um, so what year was that you went to
That
take you?
was 2019, and then I
Okay.
took it back and, I came back on fire, like literally
Absolutely.
on fire.
You still are.
And oh, I am. I know if I ever went back, it would really be scary.
Yeah.
But I came back and we had no equipment. And I remember calling on a community leader.
Mhm.
Her name was Deanna Mathis, and she worked for one of our large carpet companies, Shaw. And I called her and I said, listen, I have discovered the missing literacy link. It really is. And I explained it to her. I said, we have no equipment. I don't have a clue what I'm doing. I've had zero training, but I'm telling you, this is it. I know it in my heart. And so she let me write a grant to Shaw, and they helped me get my first microphones. And all I had was iPads in the
Mhm.
beginning. So we were recording on iPads, which was a total disaster. We kept erasing them. We couldn't figure out how to like edit well. I mean, it was just a
Yeah.
mess. And so we went into COVID, and I had this group of 4 seventh graders, and they were kind of on board with this. And we had a class discussion about how hard it is being a teenage girl or a preteen girl in 7th grade. And
Terrible.
one boy popped up and said, you think that's hard? You try being a drama kid in the middle of a football town.
Yeah.
And so, and I said, well, what would you call that then, Ellis? And he said, it's like toxic masculinity. And so the kids were debating about, is it harder being a girl in 7th grade or a guy? And Ellis took it and he started working on this podcast. And so when we went out for COVID, I said, y'all, let's just send 4 podcasts into the NPR Student Podcast
Mhm.
Challenge. We won't win. They're going to be awful. My only goal is just to submit them. And so these 4 kids said they would. And we worked on it. We on Zoom, we talked about it. I still have pictures their parents sent me of them working on it. Well, needless to say, Ellis's Toxic Masculinity podcast won top 10 in the nation.
Oh, wow.
When they called me, because they called me the first year when that happened, I remember thinking the kids were making jokes, like that they were playing a joke on me.
Yeah.
So I didn't take it seriously. And then I realized it was real. And then we all were like, well, our town could be known for more than manufacturing and football and like the things that it has been known for. And it could be known for podcasting, and we could start our own movement here. Um, and so that's how Speak Up Whitfield was born, because we're in Dalton City and there's a county schools and they've
Right.
always had this big divide between them. And so the kids said, let's don't call it Speak Up Dalton, because then that'll separate us from Whitfield like we've always been. Let's call it Speak Up Whitfield because we all live here together. And I thought, they get it.
Yeah.
They get it. They get what podcasting can do. And
Hmm.
so like that small group of middle schoolers graduated year before last. And we've had the competition every year. Last year we had 19 schools involved in
Oh,
it.
wow.
And somebody said, I think it's time for it to be Speak Up Georgia.
Yeah.
And so this next year, it's going to be Speak Up Georgia so that other counties will plug in and take ownership of it. And Ellis graduated and he's in college now in New York. And we started a
Oh, wow.
scholarship about him. So
Holy
like
cow.
we have a scholarship for seniors called the Ellis Speak Up Scholarship.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's been great. And, podcasting is, like I said, everything in my life changed whenever I realized what it could do for not just kids, but teachers, adults, everyone.
Yeah. I mean, you were talking about the literacy challenges, and I don't know if I get flack anymore. When I started listening to audiobooks, like people would say, that's not reading. That's not,
Right.
you're not getting anything there. I was like, but you don't understand. I've got a couple of kids, and if I sit down, I'm going to sleep.
Hmm.
Like if I
Yes.
sit down, and I tried to read a book the other day, like a physical book, because I was like, I should do this again. It seems like it would make me a cooler person. I felt so selfish, like just sitting down and while people were buzzing about me, but like I can be productive, which we have that there's probably some therapy I need to go do for that, but we have that overwhelming drive to be productive and kind of keep moving and
Yes.
doing stuff. And that's my, yeah, that's my, I prefer that kind of consumption, the audio forward stuff over anything video based, because I get to focus. I get to pay
Yes.
attention to it. And for those kids too, that kind of, like you said, that get it. Um, yeah, that's a powerful, literacy connection. How was did you transition from the English classroom, or did you stay in the English classroom where you were doing the podcasting stuff? Was it
Well,
part of that?
I've kind of gone back and forth. So I have taught some audio video and focused heavily on podcasting. We still do some film, like short films, but I also have taught advanced composition. I did dual enrollment English last year, but I have incorporated podcasting into all of those classes.
Hmm.
And now I've started teaching a podcasting class at Dalton State College in the
Oh, wow.
communication department.
That's
And
awesome.
yes, and last year we had a top 10 winner from the
Yeah.
college. So we got to see Dalton State's name with like all the big Boston University,
Hmm.
Fordham, all of that.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Boston's a huge communication school.
yes. So I was so proud of my Dalton State kids. They really brought it. We got a couple of honorable mentions out of the group of 10.
Mm.
So, yeah. And the thing honestly now that has happened is I have realized that podcasting is just the tool, and it's the listening and the speaking, and how like English teachers, that we don't teach speaking and listening intentionally, that we think it's happening, but it's actually such a weak skill that kids have. And think about like the last 24 hours of your life. If you laid your 24 hours out as a pie chart for those awake hours, what percentage were you speaking and listening versus reading and writing?
Yeah.
And so we spend 80 or more percent of our energy teaching reading and writing literacy components, and very little teaching speaking and listening, even though those are the skills that adults use. And so I think there is a disconnect there. I think podcasting is one of the answers to that, but it's just looking at those skills and how we're teaching them and teaching teachers to teach them in a different way than they have been.
Yeah.
So that's what my research has been on lately. I've been working on a curriculum that I want to share with teachers called the Listening Classroom. And so I hope that my podcast that I do at GAETC this year it's gonna be the companion to
Mhm.
that approach. Um, and so I'm really, really excited. And yes, I love Greg, Rick, and Shannon Chapman from Fulton. The four of us, we call ourselves the Podcast Collective. And they're just as crazy as I am. So it
Yeah.
works great. You'll have to join us.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, well, if I had to rank crazy, I'm just now getting to know you. I'd probably go Greg, Rick, you. But just on sheer energy alone, like Greg's a fireball, man.
Yes.
I'm like, you ain't slowing that man down. Started his whole
No, he's taken over
podcast.
Pod leadership this year. I don't know if he told you about that, but last year we started a 5-hour podcast marathon, and he and Rick and I came up with the idea in the middle of a training where we got the leader completely derailed from Georgia Film Academy. And
They need it. They need it.
oh, I know, and he joined in too, but we just kind of kept bouncing ideas off of each other, and we were like, well, you know, teachers struggle to come to professional development, but what if they brought kids and we had like a podcast marathon and everybody got like 5 hours to make the best 5-minute podcast they could with 5 judges, 5 topics, maybe we gave 5 awards and we played with that, number 5, and
Mhm.
it all could happen in one day.
Yeah.
And so that we started that last year and it was very successful. And so this year we're going to do it in May 1st, in Forsyth with Greg's school.
Nice. Send me a reminder on that. I'd like to come.
Okay.
Need me to do whatever you need me to do. Because that sounds so cool. So for that one, do y'all do like prompts or something, or do they get to pick whatever they want to produce in that 5-hour time?
Well, last year, so it has to have one teacher or one adult, like it can be a parent volunteer, because they have to be able to drive them, obviously,
Right.
and then 4 kids. You can max out at 4. It can be less, but it has to be at least 4. And we had a bunch of topics in a hat, and we had somebody pull out 5, and they could
Mhm.
choose to incorporate all 5 of those. They could use 1. We really just did it as a jumping off point. We didn't hold them to it. So some teams veered very far off of their topic, but it at least gave us something to kind of a place to start.
Yeah.
And the kids had a great time. I mean, they were camped out all over the Dalton Convention Center. Some of them were driving. We had groups that went and interviewed people at Waffle House, like all Walmart. I mean, we got some great footage from
Yeah.
different places. You can imagine the Waffle House.
Yeah. You're
So
always going to get good stories at Waffle House. It doesn't matter what time of day
you
you
do,
pop.
especially from people who work there.
Yes. They've seen some stuff.
That's true. But I mean, the kids loved it. And, there was an urgency about it because of the time restriction. And so,
Mhm.
they were really like dividing up, responsibilities on the
Yeah.
team. And the adult was immersed in what they were doing with the kids, which is how we should be teaching.
Mhm.
That it should be a team approach and learning together. And teachers should be encouraged to learn with their students.
Yeah.
So it was beautiful. And I think this year, being at the ACE is going to give us even more space and more connection to different, schools. So I'm excited to see how it's going to grow.
Yeah. And you're doing I'm picturing like a newsroom sort of thing where you've got like the different, like in your little teams that you're describing, where you've got the teacher kind of serving as like, the Perry White for the Daily Planet. Uh,
Right.
and like
Yes.
everybody else is kind of the reporters
Yes.
around and somebody's pivoting and coordinating. It's such a powerful skill, just that delegation of duties and like how we're going to meet our deadline and still accomplish all the stuff. And it's how formal, just out of curiosity, like how formal do they get with like scripting in it? Or did they just kind of like find a thread and flow with it? Like where'd you see more people like leading?
Well, I think it was interesting that the overall winners last year was an elementary team. Like they beat out, and I had some dual enrollment college students
Wow.
there. And I mean, really, I mean, obviously we took into consideration their age, but
Hmm.
yeah, so a little team from Tunnel Hill Elementary won last year, and theirs was, and I think they incorporated, from my memory, comedy. Theirs was about laughing and the importance of laughter, and so I think first of all, they were maybe a little more free spirited. My older kids want to plan out more and control
Yeah.
it more, and you see that as we become adults, that we very much control it. Whereas as a child, we're free spirited. We'll talk to anybody. And it captured that, so, different teams had different approaches. Greg will want me to tell you that his team came in second. He actually thought that it was first in his category,
Yeah.
but they did come in second to the elementary group.
Yeah.
But he was on fire, and Rick was there. He was podcasting with the adults and kids as they were walking by. And
Hmm.
Shannon Chapman from Fulton was there leading the judging. She recruited the judges, trained them. So I mean, it really, if you looked, every team was kind of coming at it in a different way. Some were really organized, some were just kind of winging it.
Yeah.
And I think the adults were in the same boat. It was our first year. We were trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. So we had about 15 teams competing.
Wow. That's a really good turnout for your first year.
It is. We didn't want it to go too big the first year.
Right.
We just wanted to make sure it went well. We knew we were going to have some pitfalls. It took a lot longer for teams to get their podcast turned in. It started at 9. We had the deadline of 2. And I mean,
Hmm.
teams were turning in their podcast by 2, but just getting them to the judges took a little longer. So we
Yeah.
definitely have some tech things to iron out this year, but that happens always with technology.
Hmm.
But the teams just were great. Like, we had a videographer who followed them around and got some footage of them interviewing different people. So actually watching the kids, interview people who were so different from them, age wise, race wise, just walks of life.
Hmm.
I just can't imagine there being an experience that they would learn anymore.
Yeah.
Any more skills, any more about other people, about compassion, about everything. And I just think we're missing it. I think it's what's missing. Like, kids went out for COVID, they came back. We know they have low attention spans, low interest, low commitment.
Hmm.
And this is a tool that could, catch that fire again.
Yeah. I think about, like, some of the kids that I've seen, and the stereotype of, what is it? Like, Gen Z doesn't want to make phone calls. Like, they're scared to be judged, and the thought of, like, walking into a place and asking
Yes.
somebody for something is like a foreign experience to them.
Yes.
Not to throw my own child under the bus, but I'll throw them under the bus. They just started college at Columbus State, and they want. They asked me the other day, it's like, when are you coming to visit? Because my buddy's car is messed up, and I need help going to a mechanic.
It's like you got to talk to the mechanic.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I get some of the intimidation factor, and I'm not the most car guy, and I look at a mechanic and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if they're trying to, mess with me or whatever.
Right.
But you still have, like, there's fears there that you have to get over at some point.
Right.
And I'm trying to, like, think back in my background, like, when did I become okay with talking to people? It's not an ingrained skill, I don't think.
Mhm.
It's something you have to practice and kind of flex on. Do you have any, like, standout stories of kids that come into your class or situation that were, like, painfully shy, that you've seen
Yes.
anybody explode? Like,
Yes, yes. Well, and I'll tell you another thing. I have had a number of kids who, well, like, let's go back to Ellis, the very first kid.
yeah.
And he's given me permission, and so has his parents, like, because he has really told his story multiple times since we've started this project. Because he actually won top 10 NPR twice, not just once.
Wow.
And he had a serious learning disability. I mean, he has a serious learning disability, dysgraphia. And, so reading was very difficult for him. And so he didn't have a lot of confidence himself in the classroom. School was challenging for him. So this gave him, and I would say you could think about EL kids, kids who are learning English as their second language. This gives them the opportunity to practice those skills. If you don't use video, sometimes the audio only podcasts are even better because that removes being seen by people on a camera. But it just gives kids who maybe aren't strong writers, aren't strong readers, a way to show what they know in an area that may be stronger for them.
Mhm.
Whereas those kids who lack that confidence in their language skills, they're just learning English. This gives them, a way to practice in a very safe way. They can go on their own in their own bedroom to record. And so I honestly have not seen a single group of kids that it didn't work for.
Yeah.
Even our kids who are in what we call .8 classes, where they are in resource room and their skills are very limited. Now their podcast sounds different than maybe my dual enrollment kids podcast, but they're introducing themselves to people they don't know. They are listening and asking questions that they're reading off of a, clipboard.
Yeah.
And all of these are such important soft skills for
Oh my God.
almost every job. So, yes, I mean, I can't is it hard? It's hard.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll say that, like, it's hard, like, kids struggle in the beginning to do it because those skills are so weak. It's like, I don't know, getting them to run whenever their legs hurt. They're gonna complain, it's gonna be hard, it's gonna take a minute to teach them those new skills, but they're so transferable
Mhm.
that we just can't not do it anymore. It's just wrong.
Mhm.
Um, so that has become my mission, is to empower teachers, help them figure out, what do you need? What's keeping you from trying this? A lot of them will say, I'm too busy, I don't have enough time. Well, it's so easy to, enmesh it into what you're already doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a mission. It's a ministry, that
I can feel it.
really feels like.
I can I can feel it. I can feel it. I feel the power. I got two quick points. I was reminded of this is probably 10 years ago. I saw the story, but there was a young man who's on the spectrum, and the story was that he had learned how to be curious and pay attention from listening to Howard Stern. Now,
Mm,
I don't know if I would put Howard Stern up as a role model,
right.
based on some of his activities, but like he's a really good interviewer.
Mm,
Like, I don't know if you've ever heard him like do
I
like some of
have.
his 3 hour stuff that he does
Mhm.
with like, different people, but
He
the man
pulls
pays
things out of
attention.
people.
He
Mhm.
does. He asks good questions. And obviously he's got a research team that's kind of behind him and doing some stuff. And he wasn't always the Howard Stern he is today, but like, just for that kid or a young man um, to realize that he's like, oh, I'm not good at communicating. Who's good at communicating? That guy. What are some skills I could possibly pick up and kind of learn from him?
Yes.
Uh, and I also want to ask you about or just another thought. Um, so I'm teaching at West Georgia now. And one of my things I'm trying to figure out and working on right now is discussion posts. I think that is an incredibly outdated method of finding out what people know, right?
Mhm.
Because if you have AI, why would you not use AI to write your discussion post? Because you've got a billion other things to do,
Right.
and you can train it in your tone and everything. It is pretty. It's not hard to do that. Even before AI, the number of discussion posts I read that were, I'm so blah blah blah, and I agree with you so hard because blah blah blah. And you just go
Mhm.
through and you look for keywords and you try to put them in there and make yourself kind of sound like you're paying attention.
Right.
Um, one of the things I'm kind of playing with and trying to figure out is in this day of AI, and I've got my Gemini. Gemini and I hang out all the time. We work together, and Gemini is my teaching assistant, and it steps up and kind of helps me out. But in this time of AI, this right here can't be replicated.
You're right. I was just gonna interrupt you and say
Yeah.
that this is the most authentic assessment you can
Mhm.
ever implement with your students,
Yeah. And the
because
same
they
thing.
have to know it to say it.
And there's I think this is a university. I forget where it was. I heard the story yesterday. It's some Nordic country, because they're all cool and whatnot. But they're doing this as assessment.
Yes.
Like you have to stand up and present. Like there's no more multiple choice, or if you do an essay or something off campus or off online, like you have to come back in and defend it.
Right.
Like
I think if we assessed our students using speaking and listening skills, that number one, we would realize that 12th graders are more like third graders.
yeah,
And then we could really start working with them at the third grade level, even though they're 12th grade age. Because what we're doing is we're teaching them how to use AI better, but they aren't learning very much other than how to use AI to respond. And don't get me wrong, I'm a Claude girl, okay? I
yeah,
like Claude. I mean, the fact that it says, "Good morning, Amanda," that's kind of nice. Just the
yeah,
whole like, we're buddies. I get that. I'm thankful that I grew up in a period of time without any of that,
hmm,
because I was able to develop, well, I had to, we had to develop those skills. I didn't have a cell phone until I got to college.
yeah.
I didn't have internet really till I got to college. I mean, it was there in high school, but it was never used. Nobody had access to it. Nobody knew much about it. So I
And-
Yeah, so I went to the library. I mean, crazy, right?
yeah,
And so I learned those skills and I talked to the students about them, but even with our state assessments and national assessments, I don't think we're realizing where our kids really are. And how do they apply? Okay, maybe how do they regurgitate? Maybe we're not so far off, but like, how do they take what we're doing in the classroom and apply it in real life? And there's a huge gap. And that's because we speak and listen 80% of our lives and we read and write 20. And that's if we're an academic. I would argue that if we're not an academic, it might be 1090. And
if that.
so we're not preparing them and we're not assessing them and we're not teaching them in the modes that we're asking them to use in life.
Yeah.
And then that's why we're in trouble. Um,
It's the information literacy. Like, can you go and figure out something and can you apply it?
yes.
That's Dr. Lee Green's dumbed down explanation of it. Like,
Well, I mean,
can
people
you?
are always like critical thinking. And yes, I agree with that. But it starts with critical listening. And first of all, and I realized in doing this that I have not been a great listener. I still at times, because I listen to respond, I don't listen to understand or to learn. And we've been trained that the little bit of listening we do is to respond.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I mean, I really think this is the time for teachers to pull back and punt again. And instead of districts keeping on buying different kinds of literacy curriculum that just teaches reading and writing workshop in different ways with different terms, that we realize, okay, we're missing some real key components in this that we're not really working on in our classrooms. So,
yeah.
and it can be fun. I mean,
Mhm.
that's right. Unheard of fun.
Yeah, and it's God, it's sitting around the campfire, like back in whatever
Yes.
day you can think of, and then in the very original sitting around the campfire is like, how do we tell our stories? How do we communicate our information and kind of spread the word about things that need spreading the word about, and
Yes.
backing up our um arguments. I lost my words. Backing up our arguments with relevant information that kind of applies to it, and so because of that, this and yeah, that's I'm workshopping. I've got a small class right now that I'm doing. It's the first time we're teaching this class, and what I'm doing instead of the discussion posts, they're still readings because it's important to read stuff.
Absolutely.
But it's there's only like, I think 5 or 6 students in this class. I'm setting them up into I'm telling them they can either all meet together if they want, like, or they can subdivide in twos and threes, however they want to do it. But their goal is to record this for 20 minutes of you talking about it.
I think that's a
Like,
great idea.
and then we can take a look at whatever you talk about, put it back into the things. And on my end, like with 5 or 6 is easy to do, but what I was trying to do is how can I extrapolate that out to my class where I've got 100 people in it?
Right.
Like groups, and I can't watch 15, 20-minute videos and get that graded and assessed in a timely manner. But you know what I can do? I can pull a transcript.
Yes.
I can compare that transcript with the rubric and then be able to kind of pull some things together. So
That's a great
again,
idea.
workshopping it, trying to figure some stuff out. But yeah, I want more of this
Hmm.
and less of. I think that's an amazing idea that you put forth there with
Yes.
M dash in it.
The thing is, your students may not have the skills. I mean, that's the reality is that, I just keep thinking about my group last year, my dual enrollment kids, and I took one of them to college that didn't have a ride, and she was terrified to go ask the IT guy to help her with her computer.
Yeah.
And, it was just those kinds of things, but she's been in the podcast project and has done that. And I said, just think about how you did this, And so we talked about it, but I just don't think we've worked on it enough. I really believe, the way I want to do it this year is did you ever use Cornell Notes? Have you heard of
No,
that?
I've heard it referenced before, but I can't. It's
It's
not
just
ringing
a
a bell.
note-taking system that I don't even know how long it's been around from Cornell, and I looked at it one day and I thought, "You know what? Really, though, we need to teach kids how to take notes and respond to audio text because so much of what they take in is auditory." And so I think, like, practicing that in class instead of having bell ringers, having bell listeners, and,
Ooh.
instead of having Socratic seminar, we need to have audio roundtable, and so, like, teaching them, hearing things, different texts aloud, then taking notes in a way to do that, like really teaching them how to do it, and then taking those notes and having them be able to discuss those audio text in an in-depth way with each other. And then from that, creating those. And then from that, where those go to showcase them and give them a real audience. That system, you're incorporating all your literacy skills
Mm-hmm.
and they're engaged and you're doing it as a group and, class looks different.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I'm calling the listening classroom. So that's what I'm working on right now is figuring out, like I said, it was 2019 when I realized podcasting was the tool and it's taken me this long, to figure out like what is really the problem and how
Yeah.
do we fix it. So I'm excited to bring that to GAETC and our podcast is going to be called I'll Listen. And so we're going to talk about the way teachers use speaking and listening in their classrooms and then storytelling, like the
Yeah.
importance of it and where its role is in learning.
You have to be like that's the best application. If you can tell a story about something, whatever it is,
Right.
if you can tell the story of the Pythagorean theorem of why it matters, if you can tell the story of covalent bonds and how they function, like then you understand what you're talking about.
Yes.
So that's powerful. Like I'm excited to see where this can wind up. You mentioned you're working on a curriculum, and
Yes.
putting stuff together. Um, I had thought that I don't know, but it's because this is what we do. My one question was like, "Have you thought about writing a book?" I was like, "But or just do a podcast, like,
Yeah,
and
well,
get
I'm
your
trying
stuff
to
out there that
figure
way."
out, what it should look like
Right.
because there's a part of me that feels like right now I basically have kind of these 5 tools and one
Hmm.
of them's like the note-taking system. Like at the beginning, I do this thing called a sound check where teachers check to kind of see where are their listening skills, how long is their stamina, what things throw them off. And then it starts the year off having them think about as a teacher too, how do we listen? Like that metacognition, like what's happening when somebody else is talking? When do I get lost in the process? What kinds of things are keeping me from really taking the text in? And then after that, you do that sound check. You do that at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, the end of the year, and it should be fun. It shouldn't be stressful. It should be informal, but it should give you kind of an overview that like this kid needs to work on, this listening to the text this way. This kid, is poor about writing it, whatever, and then that gives a teacher an idea of the skills to work on. And then they do those bell listeners, at least a couple of times a week where you're practicing. And, you could, if you're teaching English literature and you're reading, let's say, Lord of the Flies, maybe you read a section aloud and have the kids practice, how do they respond? You're still talking about the text. You're just teaching them those listening and speaking skills as a part of it. And then you have the audio roundtable where they bring their notes and they talk in their groups. And, it's very much a think, pair, share kind of thing, but with a larger group, and those skills will transfer. And then
Yeah.
finally, let them make a podcast. Instead of doing an argumentative essay, they're going to do that research. They're going to reference it. They're going to get those, really good sources by interviewing someone one-on-one, and let them present that podcast as their option for that culminating activity or
Mhm.
assessment. So anyway, that's where I'm going this year. I have 10th and 12th grade English, so I'm going to really try it out, and some of my department is going to do it with me, and so I'm stoked to see what happens.
Do and I'm willing to bet you get this. How often do people look at you like you're crazy?
All the time. Like, I'll tell you what's really funny is that we just bought a house in a new neighborhood, and when I joined the Facebook group for the neighborhood, a couple of people were like, "Are you the podcast lady?"
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
I said, "Yes, I am," with pride. And one of
Yeah.
them reached out and said, "I really wanted to start a podcast. Could we do that?" So it's out
Mhm.
there. People want to share their stories. Kids, adults, we all want to be listened to, and
Yeah.
we all need work on our listening. So,
I mean, that's why YouTube and social media are um nobody watches ABC anymore.
right.
Because I mean, there could be something good on there. I don't know. I
But
haven't watched
nobody
it.
knows.
I don't have TV anymore. I don't
That's
know.
right.
That's not even no. I don't have cable anymore. But yeah, it's I prefer somebody's story.
Hmm.
I prefer something interesting and unique versus, reprocess, share, blah, 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 blah. Um, that's really cool. Like the neighborhood podcast. And there's billions of them, right?
Right.
Like there's so many, but like
And
you
some are
still have
so bad. I mean,
it's so bad.
there's some bad podcasts out there. But you know what? That's great, because then you have material to have your kids listen to and say, like, why didn't this work? And when they see people out and they're speaking to people, again, that's a transferable skill, because if it's recorded, there's not a lot of difference from you seeing that unfold in front of you and realizing, okay, I should listen. I should ask an open-ended question, not a yes or no, and you learn that so that when you are in that job interview and someone asks you something that's off script, you can respond.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, like I said, it was a light bulb for me. I don't think a lot of teachers realize it. I feel like in a lot of ways, education is many years behind the way the real world works. I'm not sure why. That's almost ironic to me.
We get
Um,
stuck.
but you know what? I feel like, again, it's a ministry for me. I worked with a group 2 summers in a row in Fulton County, and I still stay in touch with a lot of those teachers. I did a training with their county, and now a lot of those teachers are using podcasting in their classrooms and are on fire, and, are seeing huge gains and differences, and the county has incorporated podcasting into their standards that they're
Mhm.
using. And so, I mean, it can happen. It's just gotta be a mental shift about the importance of those 2 literacy skills and where they need to fit in.
Right. The Do you ever go back? I got stuck on something you said about the gaining the skill. Do you ever go back and listen to any of your old stuff,
Yes,
like your
it's
first
awful.
podcast?
Awful.
It's so hard. Like it's so hard, but it's also incredibly important to humble yourself in that way,
Yes,
right?
it
Uh,
is. I made a
and
podcast one time about hair. That's the one that comes to mind, about being a redhead and the importance of hair. And you know what? Some of the clips on there were some of the best of almost any podcast I've heard, but
yeah,
just my lack of ability to put it together correctly and kind of edit out certain parts And I mean, that in itself is a huge skill. Like we think about, higher thinking skills and the way we want students to take in research and then pull out the most important parts to back up a thesis or points that they make. That's exactly what you're doing when you edit a podcast. You're listening to all of this material and you're thinking, what is my point and how should I put it together? Because if you put one piece of an interview at the beginning of your podcast, it totally changes it versus at the end.
Hmm.
If you don't clip something and you do, like that changes it. So there's so many creative choices that are higher order thinking that transfer to our reading and writing that's what I keep going back to, that this really is the missing literacy link.
Hmm.
Um, because we just don't realize the power of the tool, and it doesn't even have to cost us a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm just going to keep like singing my song because, I'm going to go back to Lauren McGawkey one day and I'm going to say to her, and I have over the years, like, you gave this to me as a gift. And
Hmm.
I know that I'm supposed to give this to other teachers too, because their students are missing out until they get it. So,
It's been a long time since I've been there, but were you at the first Ed Camp Whitfield?
Ed Camp Whitfield. I don't
Um,
think so. Where was it?
I think it was at Southeast
No, probably not.
High School. Okay.
I might have still
Yeah.
been in New York. Like after college,
Uh,
I was like, spread those wings.
yeah, yeah.
I went to New York and lived there for 15 years.
Oh wow.
Um,
What did you do in New York?
well, I lived in the Bronx
Oh,
because I've always been a like meet people that are totally different than me kind of girl. Learned some Spanish. It was great.
there
Was
you
there
go.
a few years, and then I moved to upstate near Ithaca. I always loved that area, and that's how I
Home of
knew about
Cornell.
the what? Say it again.
At home of Cornell.
Yes, 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 yes. A beautiful area, beautiful nature area full of intellectual people. They joke that you could have a person with a doctorate bagging your groceries at the grocery store. That's so true. Just very highly educated area, very artistic area. And I learned a lot being there. Like I, got married, had kids, all of that, and then came back whenever my mom developed dementia.
Oh,
And so, Dalton was a different place when I grew up than it is now. And it's a beautiful, thriving community now. And so, this will probably always be home for me. I live in Cohutta, Georgia now, North
nice.
Dalton.
Yeah, it's beautiful. My dad
Yes.
had lived in there forever. I'm a Calhoun kid,
Okay.
born carpet mill. I'm the
Mhm.
only person in my family that never worked in a carpet mill. Like everybody else, that's how everyone's made their living. And
Yes, it's a
I take
carpet.
that back. I did pin some rollers when I was like 22 or so.
Well,
So
I
I
worked
pinned
one
sheets.
8-hour shift in a carpet mill, and that's a whole nother day's story. But I'll tell you one thing. If you want your child to go to college, having them creel for one 8-hour shift is probably all you'll need to do.
Hmm.
That is hard, hard, hard work.
I think the story I heard about my grandma was she went to the Lindale mill, which was textiles too, but she she went there, she passed out, and they took her out. Like, nope, this ain't for you
Yes,
because
it's
it
a
was 120
hard work.
degrees in there. Yeah. Um, there's so many stories there too.
Well, and I got a grant this last year. I love to write grants, and I would tell any teacher that works with me, like, let me help you write grants because there's money out there,
Yeah.
to support all of your work. And I got a grant this last year from the Georgia let's see what it was like I should know the
Yeah,
name.
yeah. You got so many grants, it's hard to keep up.
One of the education foundations, and it is actually to help my students this year to interview like older citizens in our community that can tell the story of the kind of growth of the carpet industry. And
Yeah.
so and I went after that because I do want them to understand a lot of the kids in our community, their parents and grandparents have made huge sacrifices working, days and days in carpet mills that are just like you're describing, for them to have a different life. And they just don't really realize it. And so,
Hmm.
again, I think having them interview those family members and neighbors and everything, that will be a powerful project for them to learn. And just me doing that 1 8-hour shift when I thought I was going to get a new car in a month by doing that, that was probably the most eye-opening experience of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, bless them.
Yes.
Absolutely bless them like that.
Yes. Yes.
Whatever DNA that takes, it's pretty fantastic.
That is true, and they should be honored, and you know what, our whole community has been built on the backs of those workers, and we should celebrate them like we do elementary school teachers.
Mm-hmm.
They're about to the same to me. That's why I'm secondary because elementary school teachers, carpet mill workers, I can totally see like that,
Yes.
just that grit, that strength, that, stamina. It's
Mm-hmm.
like nothing I've seen hardly anywhere else.
All right. One of my favorite things is a podcast with a good name. So if you were to do something about the carpet industry, what would you name that podcast?
Oh, goodness.
Something about threads.
I would
I'm seeing,
say the yarn.
there you go. Spinning the yarn.
Yes,
Spin the yarn.
something about the yarn because, you
Yeah.
think about all the different colors of little threads that kind of are woven together.
Uh-huh.
And I really do feel like that's probably what the beauty of our region is. We have so many students from Mexico and Guatemala, Honduras, and they bring that beautiful culture with them. And those of us who never saw someone until seventh grade that didn't look like them, because that's what Dalton used to be.
Yeah.
You could go through till seventh, eighth grade and never lay eyes on someone that did not look like you. So for
Mm-hmm.
that to evolve into what it is now in this area is just beautiful. And
Yeah.
so, another opportunity to record awesome stories.
And again, such a great historical perspective. I'm glad I said those words right. That needs
Yes.
to be saved and needs to be done something with. Like, I've got regrets that uh, it wasn't a thing whenever my great grandmother and grandmother passed away, but like not sitting down with them and doing
Yes.
StoryCorps type stuff or
Yes.
getting
Yes.
those pivotal moments and even heck my ex mother-in-law the life she lived coming over from the Netherlands at age 12 to after World War II and surviving the
What a
bombings
story.
and her father going into working for the resistance and yeah, there's so much stuff that we keep missing out on. We get a lot. Sometimes I think we get too much. Sometimes I turn on YouTube and I see some of these people talking and I'm like, okay, that's enough.
Yes, yes. Well, I
But
mean, it
like,
goes back to teaching our students how to sift. A
yes.
lot of times in my classroom, I'll say, think about panning for gold. Like, you've got to learn to listen like a sifter,
Hmm.
because I have them practice at the very first few days of class. They always make every class, no matter what age they are. I start off always, they make a journal with a composition notebook. Like, what,
Yeah.
I let them sit where they want, the blah, blah, blah. Then they have to present their journal to the class. And I have the rest of the classmates practice listening to what they say about their journal and figuring out what would be the gold nugget. So, like,
Hmm.
if they tell all about their family and then they say, and I have a half sister that's in Missouri and I haven't seen her and she used to be the world to me. And then they go on and tell you all this other stuff. I'm teaching the kids to say, but it really is that connection with the half sister that she's lost. That's the
Hmm.
story.
Yeah.
So having them listen for that and then come back, and then how would you follow up to ask her, in a very sensitive way? You can tell, like, how do you read that her body language is telling you she might not want to share this, something personal might have happened. Think about all the skills that is in our just
Yeah.
inner communication with people.
Oh,
So,
and
I mean, it's like sometimes my classroom might show that I used to be a social worker.
yeah,
And then
but that's
other times,
needed.
yeah. So it's
Like,
good. It's good.
I'm hearing a therapy session in a good way. Like, I'm here because that's really what relationships should be. Like,
Right.
can you give of yourself and can you listen when you need to listen and
Yes.
can offer when you need to offer? Like, that's God, that's how you live, man.
Well,
Sorry.
and the media is not teaching our young people that. Like, those
No.
skills are not getting worked on either, instead they're hiding behind text and social media and saying awful things to each other but usually kids leave my class being very well connected to each other as a group, and I feel like maybe that's my greatest accomplishment at the end of the day is not, maybe what they remember about English, but what they remember about, like, treating others.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
storytelling's the key.
Heck yeah. I taught middle school for 6 years, and um, that was my tour of duty. Let's do in 7th grade. You mentioned the 7th grade. You got worse than boys or girls. Yes. Like,
Yes.
it's 7th grade is the worst year of life for everyone.
For most
Uh,
people, you're right.
yeah, it's just hard. Um, and I'm thinking about oh, um, I remember sitting in meetings with parents and stuff and, just having conversations, and they'd be worried about grades. I'm like, "Listen, you have a good human. Like, you
Yes.
have somebody that's kind and sweet and, you know, and
Yes.
that's really for right now, that's fantastic.
That is.
And they're sweet and they care about their friends and they're gonna be okay.
They're gonna be good people.
Yeah, and so and in 7th grade, I mean, I taught social studies and it was Africa, Asia, Middle East. Those kids couldn't tell you anything about OPEC. But
Yes.
if
Yes,
we could
yes.
just
I understand.
if we could just say there's others out there and it's important to try to be decent. Like, and that's really cool that you're pushing this or not pushing, that you're doing this through this medium and giving people a better way to communicate.
Well, I look at other people around me and their jobs, and I'll tell you, turning 50,
Uh,
I know it was like just recent, but a plunge. But I mean, I think 50s are gonna be great because it's making me realize that all of those things that people who were older than me told me, like, that I didn't listen to, they were right. And, this is gonna be the age where I kind of realize truly what's important, and one of those things is what a gift it was that I chose to be a teacher.
yeah.
That every day of my life is so short that I get to go to a place and make such a huge difference if I choose to. Because there's some bad teachers. I mean, there's teachers who have poor attitudes that show up and, are not emotionally regulated, and then they have kids who aren't I mean, it's just a disaster, but, like, we have one of the greatest, if not the greatest profession in the world because we teach every other profession and, we get to influence the world in such a great way if we take that responsibility seriously. And,
Hmm.
I mean, people think I'm crazy, but after about a month in the summer, I'm like missing my kids. I'm missing my classroom. I'm just missing that opportunity to connect with them. And so I'm excited to see what Murray is going to be for me and what I can bring to Murray. And, I love GAETC. I've been plugged in with them for the last 10 years of my life. I've
Yeah.
gotten grants from them. I've, been awarded, the Star Educator, or is that what Rising Star? Maybe it was that.
Rising star. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've gotten such support and love from them. Pauline, oh my gosh, I love Pauline. Let me just give her a shout out because she is like the sweetest, most supportive, understanding, encouraging person, and just GATC is so blessed to have good people.
Hmm.
And I mean that, and I'm thankful to get to be a part of Creators Row, and you're stuck with me. Like, don't think you're going to get rid of me. I've always
No,
known that's where I wanted to be is podcasting there, so
it's pretty cool.
I'm glad you guys started that.
Yeah. I think it was Clint and I did a little podcast, at Tech Rewind back in the day. God, we probably started that like 15 or something. We had like 50 or 60 episodes on there. And like most things do, we got busy and stuff fizzled out. I remember we pitched podcasting at GATC. It's like, we would be your GATC podcast
Yeah.
back probably 50, I want to say 2015. And they were like, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know about that. And it's fun to be able to kind of come, heck, almost full circling back around again, uh,
Yes.
to be doing this, the GATC colon the podcast,
I
to
love it.
have this opportunity to kind of get together with people. Wow, it's an hour. It didn't feel like it.
I know, I'm
um,
telling you, I could talk podcasting for just days on end, you could just
yeah,
bring me water and I could keep going probably. So,
yeah, a filibuster.
yes.
Uh, the So yeah, we mentioned Creators Row. You'll be there with us November 6th through the 8th. Yep, there we
Yes.
go. Dates. At GATC in the exhibit hall there, setting up. So if you want to reach out to Amanda, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
It would be probably through email at Amanda Triplett, which is my middle name, maiden name, at nationalpodcastproject.com.
We didn't even hit on that. Give me the blurb about National Podcast Project. What's that?
Okay,
What is
well, going back a little bit to my story, when we had Speak Up Whitfield and we started getting requests from other counties to come do trainings. So that's one of the things that I love to do is go to counties and work with their teachers on how to incorporate it into their curriculum. And we started helping teachers get grants and, equipment for their rooms. And it was not just my district. We
Mhm.
realized, my friend and I, that we needed to start a 501c3. And so we did. And early on in my career, I was a part of the National Writing Project, and I believed very much in their mission and still do. And I thought this is very similar. It's a different tool of literacy we want to use. And so we started the National Podcast Project in 2021. It became a 501c3. And so then it took over Speak Up Whitfield, which is now going to be Speak Up Georgia. It took over Pod Jam, and it will be over the listening classroom curriculum and this new podcast, I'll Listen.
Wow.
So it's growing, and we hope eventually there'll be a Speak Up Tennessee and a Speak Up New York and a Speak Up California, and that other states will realize the power of doing this and showcasing their state students. And
Mhm.
so we will help them do that.
That is so cool. And I don't know why, but like my brain is putting it into categories too. Like you could have a history channel, you could have a sports
Mhm.
channel, you could have a baking or cook food sort of like whatever. I'm thinking of all the different categories in the podcast app. Um,
Yes.
just the possibilities of directions you can go with stuff.
Well, we have a website. It's www.nationalpodcastproject.com. And on there, you can see some of the projects we've done with our students. Like there's one on there called Las Doce, which we had a group of girls ask if they could showcase the Hispanic female leaders in our region. They did not think that they got enough spotlight, and they wanted to share their stories. And it's a beautiful project of moms, teachers, business owners. I mean, activists. They chose 12 different ladies in our community and spent a summer of their own time interviewing those women and showcasing their stories. And we have that on the
Wow.
website. It's called Las Doce. And GAETC actually helped fund that project.
That's
So
awesome.
we're all connected.
Yeah. That is so cool. Final question. If somebody says I got no money, or I've got, a limited budget, what tool or product would you point them in the direction of? What would be the best way to get started?
Well, the truth is, you don't need a lot to make a great podcast. I love Soundtrap. Soundtrap has been a great company for us to work with because so many districts are on Chromebooks. And it
Hmm.
really is the only fully functioning. I mean, you can obviously try to make it work with Canva, and people do presentations on it every year at GATC. But Canva's clunky. I mean, if
Yeah.
you want to have a strong podcast with a lot of different components, you can do it on Canva. There's lots of programs. You can do it on Adobe Podcast. But
Mhm.
with Soundtrap, students kind of learn a little bit more about the editing and how to set the tone with background sound and all of that. And and things that you can really incorporate into that process that are important. So I love Soundtrap, always use it. I would say that they should try to write a grant to get Soundtrap at their district if they don't have the money, although it's not expensive. It's a few dollars a seat for
Hmm.
kids. And I also think they can use, let's see if I have one with me, a handheld recorder.
Yeah.
I have tried, $10 mics all the way up to $500 mics. But in the end, Sony makes a handheld stereo recorder that we
Hmm.
used to use for lectures at college. And it just pushes out a USB at the
Talking about.
bottom. And I love it. They record beautiful audio. It's the older ones are about $50. The newer ones that charge on your computer are $100. But really, if a teacher had a couple of those, I've let kids check those out with cases overnight so they can go home and record like a grandparent or something.
Hmm.
And those work beautifully. And you don't have to have a computer or anything. It's just that one little recorder.
Right.
So I mean, and then if you really are into it, there's lots of grants out there that you can get a Rodecaster Pro, or that's
Mhm.
what I like to use is the 4 pod mic Rodecaster Pro. But Zoom makes a great handheld device that you can plug into. There's so many options, but do you have to have a lot of money? No, you can get started with a couple $100 and
Yeah.
make great podcasts. So, and reach out to me. I love helping teachers get started. I'll look at what you have and what you don't have, and we'll come up with a plan together.
Yeah. Have you played with this interface one right now, Riverside?
You know what? I've heard about it. I wanted to ask you how you like it because it's a little pricey, but
It's
what do you
20
think?
bucks a month.
Okay,
Uh,
that's not too bad.
no, or I think it's like 200 for a year.
Okay,
It is the best thing I've ever seen.
okay.
Like, you can go live on it if we wanted to. Like, we could have put this on YouTube and Facebook as we're talking, had we wanted to do that. That's a struggle from GATC.
Yes.
There's your internet. It does all the clips for you.
Okay.
Like it'll write the intros, it'll do the outros. I've got it set up to have like my lower third have the logo one here. It bounces back and forth between the two of us. It's just, yeah, the bells and whistles are fantastic. Oh, and what it does with the audio quality, like in the beginning, we had I don't know if you saw it on your end, but we had some buffering issues
Mm-hmm.
um, on what I was seeing coming from your side. But what it does whenever we're done, it's going to pull the video and audio from your side and the video and audio from my side and put them together into one file. So that way it's going to look and sound the best as it possibly can.
Great.
So you could have been buffering the whole time, but on the final product, we'd have no idea. Because it's just going to pull the quality sort of thing from both feeds. That's what it's doing as we're recording events.
Okay.
Um,
Well, we've been talking about it. Our board has talked about trying it. And
yeah.
so I think that, and now that I know you and I know you know how to use it,
Hmm.
and I think that it's also about just building a community, so
Yes.
that you know who to reach out to so that there's not a big learning curve. If we just help each other, we can all,
Mhm.
we can all figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of cool people and a lot of cool people to talk to. So,
Yes.
yeah, hit up Amanda, Amanda dot triplet or Amanda triplet.
Amanda Triplet, the full name, no dot, at nationalpodcastproject.com.
Okay. So hit us up. Come see us at JETC.
Yes.
Space is still available. Registration is still open. We'd love to have you there. Tell your friends, tell your wives, tell your friends' wives, to come and check it out.
That's right.
And, yeah. So Amanda, thank you so much for your time. I'm
Thank
excited to
you.
hear about what goes on at Murray County. Um,
Me too.
the beautiful city of Chatsworth.
That's right.
Uh, and it's great to finally meet you in person and get to know you a little bit and the cool person that Rick and Greg have been telling me about for a minute now. So
Good.
uh, and I
They
can't
put
wait
up
to see
with
you.
me. They definitely put up with me.
Uh, it's probably you put up with some stuff too.
Well, Rick's easy. Rick is like the spreadsheet king, okay? We call
Yes,
him, Lord Williams, and he spreadsheets anything you're working on, which is amazing. And
yeah,
Greg just talks. And so
yes.
Greg and I just talk over each other sometimes, talk about learning to listen. He and I, that we need that together.
Well, when you got that fire anxiety, it's hard to keep it in. Like it's
It's
hard to,
true. It is so true. I'm glad you can feel my pain.
yes.
Podcasting really has done that for me.
Yeah. All right, Amanda, thank you so much.
Thanks, Lee.
All right. I'll see you later.
Okay.